welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. You know what Christy Mathewson wasn't worried about? SIERA. When you're thinking about Pedro Siriaco, I mean, the only one that can compete is maybe Hannes Wagner's 1908 season. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Kern.
Like, if we just clip together every time we've talked about him on other people's profiles, we've done a Mickey Cochran episode.
I can't get past Rabbit Marinville. It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of not on the other side of the screen. To my actual left is Daniel Kern. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, not only do we not have screens today, we have whole new equipment that we're working with today for the first time.
Yeah, it's this is the best I think Above Replacement Radio has ever sounded, especially as Above Replacement Radio and not the show to be named later when we were in radio. Yeah, it's basically so we were given the Springfield microphone audio equipment. We have like levels and all this stuff. I mean, the system is amazing. So we're really excited to have this equipment with us.
It's very high tech compared to what we're used to working with, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a million times more efficient than what we've done before. But yeah, just a great improvement, great addition to Above Replacement Radio is this podcast setup. And, you know, maybe after our days of Springfield College is over, maybe we'll have to, I'll have to get one of my own of these things because, man, it is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, the days of the regular season are kind of winding down, and there's not many races that are eye-opening. I would say, NL Wildcard and NL West are still kicking around. AL Wildcard still happening, but over the past week, not a lot of series did that much. There weren't really any sweeps or any real momentum changes that occurred. So, we're just gonna go into a thing. We talked about it off air about doing it. It's just a fun little subject. We're gonna each list top 10 players we wish we had Statcast for. There's going to be, a variety of players. Basically, what I imagine it would be is we get their Statcast data, we get their percentiles and rankings, but if you go to the rankings, you don't get to see. So if I wanted a player from 1963, I'm not getting the other 1963 ranking. Well, it's like a blank. It's like a blank name with the stats next to them, but we don't see what name is attached to them outside of the player we pick. So that's what I imagine. But I guess we can start out. I mean, this is going to be a fun, subjective list. Really, just highlighting what we want from baseball history. But Daniel, let's start out with number 10.
All right, number 10 on my list is one of the many history alums that I featured. A guy who I think I would love to see his percentile rankings because I think they'd be popping off the charts virtually every year. Jimmy Fox. I think Jimmy Fox would be a good one to look at. That guy, one of the best power hitters in the history of baseball. One of the best power hitters when power hitting wasn't really a thing. We're talking early 20s or late 20s, early 30s. Offense overall was good, but home runs weren't really that big of a thing outside of Babe Ruth and then Jimmy Fox. Probably the best. I believe he has the best OPS among right-handed hitters of all time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 1038.
Yep.
Has the highest OPS of all time.
He's probably 100th percentile or at least 95th percentile in virtually everything for all the years that he played. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see. I'm assuming one thing I would assume is I'm assuming hard hit rate wouldn't be 95 miles an hour just because that's not
right.
He led the league in hard hit rate with 3%. Yeah. They'd probably have to adjust so it's a substantially different number. But his hard hit rate would have probably been at least 50% every year, maybe even higher.
Yeah, exactly. Probably for that area you'd have to make it 88 miles per hour or something like that.
I might even less. I mean, it's hard to say because we literally don't have any data, but it definitely wouldn't be 95.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly why we have to make this list here.
Yeah. We wish we had Statcast, so we got a better perspective of what it was like. And Jimmy Fox is definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 10 is another history alum, and I think one of the themes of my Statcast wants is kind of representing each era, especially with pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 10 is Sandy Koufax. I want to see, like, because he was the first guy. He was one of the first strikeout machines. I think he was the first guy to have a qualifying season with like 10 plus strikeouts per nine. So he had to be a revolutionary in some sort. And I wanted to see like what his fastball was at, what his spin rate was at, and also the curveball vertical drop would be interesting because he's been noted to have like one of the greatest curveballs of all time, along with his exploding fastball. So I'd like to see where that was at. And of course, percentile-wise, he was probably like 100th percentile and all that, especially in the early to mid 60s. So, yeah, Sandy Koufax is my number 10, and I guess we'll snake it. So okay. I'll take number 9. Number 9's an interesting one for me. I'm taking the original Billy Hamilton because
okay,
I want to see what the fastest guy in the 1890s was all about.
I love it.
Because for those who don't know, I believe he had 4 100 stolen base seasons. So that's some speed. And I want to see where he's at sprint speed wise. And also, he was great at walking. Let's see his chase rate and all that. I want to see the original Billy Hamilton and how fast he was, and the feet per second, and the I think the 30 feet dividers or whatever. I'm not exactly that. I'm not super familiar with how they measure the sprint statistics, but Billy Hamilton would surely be interesting to highlight. So, what is your number 9?
I love how you preface that as like the original Billy Hamilton, as if it's another guy that was like Billy Hamilton, but no, it's actually the other guy that was named Billy Hamilton. My number 9 is a very, very similar one to yours. Same era. I'm looking at the same stuff. It's one of my favorites. It's Nap Lajoie.
Yep.
I would love to see, once again, his sprint speed. People forget, like, he led the league in slugging 4 times.
Right.
He didn't hit a lot of home runs. He hit 82. But still, like in 21 years, that's a lot for that era. 5 home runs per 162. He had a 643 slugging percentage in 1901 in a year where he also had a 426 average. So that's still a 220 ISO.
Yeah,
he had power numbers before, and I mean this is 1901. Absolutely no, but like I talk about 20s and 30s. Yeah, they were still offensive, but still not a lot of power. There was no offense in 1901 whatsoever except for Nap Lajoie.
Right.
Like, I'd be shocked if there's any category where he has a circle that isn't red.
Yeah.
Like, between sprint speed, between, like, outs above average probably even.
Yeah.
If that could exist. And then just all the hitting stats. Like, I would love to see what that looks like.
Yeah, because the best hitters of the dead ball era, like, when you look at guys like Nap Lajoie, Ty Cobb, Hannes Wagner, they weren't hitting home runs, but they were the OPS leaderboards because the version of hitting home runs back then was doubles and triples.
Mm-hmm.
So like Nap Lajoie would have been the high exit velocity guy, the high barrel rate guy. I can't imagine what a barrel was in 1901, but
led the league with a 5% barrel rate.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, like
it might still exist.
I
right?
think to get a barrel, you have to be at like 98 miles per hour.
I was gonna say
velocity.
you'd have to adjust. Like, the launch angle would probably have to be lowered, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because no one was hitting home runs.
Yeah, a launch angle between
0 and 15.
Yeah, 10 and 15, exit velocity of 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. But and if you have anything more on Nap Lajoie, you can go to number 8.
Yeah. So number 8 is another history alum. This one, I think, I feel like this one was a little out of the box for the reasons. I'm talking about Johnny Bench. because Johnny Bench is the consensus best catcher of all time. It's not really disputed that much. We did an episode on him, so we can certainly attest to that. But I want to see what the defense looks like, because defensive metrics for catchers in Johnny Bench's era are basically non-existent. Fangraphs didn't introduce defensive run save until later. They didn't introduce framing until later. There's really no legit way we can evaluate how Johnny Bench was as a catcher. I would love to see outs above average, catcher pop time, catcher framing on Statcast to see if he passes the test.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a very interesting one, and he would be someone who would be high percentile and everything like most of the people on the list, because great offensive catcher, great defensive catcher. I don't know what to make it would be like, a healthy Yasmani Grandal, probably.
Mm-hmm.
My number 8 is actually also a catcher. I'm looking at Josh Gibson for number 8 because, there's obviously a lot we do not know about Josh Gibson. They did recently update his statistics on Baseball Reference, but I feel like still that's only a fraction of what was actually seen from Josh Gibson. So I want, a track man and whatever else they have on Josh Gibson constantly if we go in the time machine and see, also I don't know the configuration of all those Negro League parks. So like how far were these home runs going that he was hitting? Because, according to legend, he was someone who was hit like between 800 and 1,000 home runs or something like that. I want to see how far these home runs were, and the percentile rankings among like the Negro Leaguers, and the percentile rankings among all major leaguers, because
Negro Leagues are major leagues.
Yeah, they are major leagues, and unfortunately, there's no way we could see how he would do in Major League Baseball, but it would be interesting to see, how his exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate compared to, all the other major leaguers while he was playing, because he was playing in the 30s. So it would be competing against guys like Fox, guys like Ruth, guys like Gehrig.
It's a good one.
So that would be extremely interesting to see for that multitude of reasons. My number 7 is another pitcher representing an era who was another sort of revolutionary, you could say, the big train, Walter Johnson. I want to see, everyone from back then says his fastball was like amazing. I want to see what it actually was at. I imagine it probably averaged like maybe 84, but I want to see, how that fastball velocity ranked versus like the list below him, if he was the guy who was throwing the fastest. Also, it would be interesting to see someone like him, the pitch usage, because I imagine it's like 85% fastball, 15% curveball, and that's about it.
Pitch mix.
Yeah. He wasn't exactly he was like Matt Whistler except with a fastball, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine. That would be,
I mean, to be fair, everyone was probably like Matt Whistler but with a fastball.
Yeah, to be fair. But part of it is he's, representing a pitcher in an era.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be fun to see fastball velocity, where it was at. That's kind of mainly what I would look at, and the pitch usage probably would be second reason. So who do you got for your number 7?
So I also kind of went with a similar approach with pitchers than you did, where I picked a certain amount of pitchers each to represent an era. But my kind of mindset is like, the older you are, the more interested I am. Because the further we go back into the baseball history, just the less we know in general.
Exactly.
So that is why my number 7 is Nolan Ryan.
Ah.
I'm assuming you're probably going to talk about him later on.
Mm-hmm.
He's the youngest pitcher I have on this list, as you can very well imagine.
Yep.
But I mean, it kind of goes without saying. Like, the guy threw until he was 45 years old, maybe even beyond that. Do you remember off the top of your head?
It was 46.
It was 46. Yeah. I want to see what he was throwing at age 45. Like, exactly what was that? I want to see how much velocity he was losing between like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I want to see all that. And I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what else there is to say. Nolan Ryan is kind of one that speaks for itself.
Yeah, and You're right. I will be talking about him
Yeah.
later on. Who do you got for number 6?
So the number 6 is another pitcher from a older era, Bob Feller. He was kind of touted as the biggest flamethrower of his generation, 50s, 60s, a little bit before Nolan Ryan. I feel like Statcast would do a better job of evaluating his fastball velocity than
Yeah, I agree.
driving a car next to it.
Yeah.
If you go to, I'm sure this is on YouTube video somewhere. There's a video of Bob Feller in like a button-down shirt and like dress pants, like just firing off a fastball while a car is simultaneously driving past him
Yeah.
at like a speed of like 90 miles an hour or something, to show that like he was throwing faster than how the car was moving.
Yeah.
Because that was how Statcast worked in the 50s. I would like a better version of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, my number 6, probably a little, definitely, well, now I know, definitely higher or lower on my list than your list. Barry Bonds, I have at number 6. I think the most fascinating thing, and I wanted to include just someone who because he definitely represents an era, and he represents a guy who wasn't on steroids and then was on steroids, and we kind of know when that was. So I want to know exactly what the exit velocity difference was when he was on steroids, and I imagine it was probably in the 90th, 100th percentile before, but it probably changed even more. It probably changed even more after that. So I think that would be very interesting to see, because we always talk about, what's the difference between steroids and, not being on steroids and being on steroids. We would probably get a good assessment on, what a guy like Barry Bonds experienced in terms of change. So I think that would be interesting. And then the before steroids would be fascinating too. Sprint speed, and outs above average too, because he was also a pretty good defender before he started growing like a madman for sure. So yeah, Barry Bonds just as a whole, and then also the change between no steroids and steroids. And my number 5 is Andrew Jones, because I believe he leads in defensive WAR among outfielders. So I want to see what that outfield jump is like. I want to see the outs above average. I want to see his catch probabilities. I want to see his route efficiency on some of the broadcasts. If they just were able to somehow add that to like the NBC Sports ones with Bob Costas and Joe Morgan, and the TBS ones too. I want to see all of that, all the defensive stuff from Andrew Jones, and also he was a good hitter too. So the exit velocity stuff would be pretty interesting to see as well. But for me, I just want to see all the outfield defensive metrics from Andrew Jones. What do you got for number 5?
So my number 5 is a very similar type. First of all, before I move on, Andrew Jones also put some respect on those offensive numbers too. His 2005, the only season in baseball history with 50 home runs and a 2+ DWAR.
Yep. Yeah. He would be high in the exit velocity and barrel rate as well.
For sure. So my number 5, very similar type of player again. I'm looking at Roberto Clemente, because
yes.
I mean, first of all, that arm.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how much he's firing out of the cannon. I mean, there's that video of him and making that throw from right field, like the very corner all the way to home plate on not even on the fly.
Yeah.
Probably the most absurd throw I've ever seen. I need to get the miles per hour on that.
Exactly.
I don't even need to see the 3,000 hits. I don't even need to see the rest of his career. I would like to see it, but I don't even need it. I need the miles per hour on that one particular throw.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see if modern players are even keeping up with that.
Yeah.
That's not a throw you're seeing anywhere nowadays.
Right. It's very hard to he'd be up there probably Renfroe and Judge.
Yeah,
would be
and not to
chasing
mention,
him.
I'd also just like to see his batted ball charts. I would love to see his spray chart.
Yep.
I think that'd be a really fun one to look at. We don't really get stuff from spray charts only started I think pitch tracking era or something like that, right?
Yeah, probably, or at least accurate spray charts.
Yeah.
Where it's being charted by like a computer program and not
Yeah.
like human beings.
Like I think that'd be a really fun spray chart to look at.
Yeah, especially from a contact guy like himself. I'm pretty sure he was a 317 lifetime average or something like that.
It was 3. Yeah, you got it. 317.
Yeah. So and he didn't necessarily rely on power, and I think people in like documentaries or whatever, they said he didn't have high stolen base numbers, but he was a very good base runner. So I think it would be interesting to see the sprint speed too.
Yeah.
You got number 4.
Yeah, so my number 4, you already mentioned, it's Barry Bonds. I need to see the radical chart.
Radical chart.
Yeah, like I'll pull up one, but like on Savant, it's part of the Illustrator where it's like you see, I don't know how to describe it with words, but like you see the little chart where it's like the half circle where it's like a little dot to represent each batted ball in terms of exit velocity and launch angle, and it's color coded to whatever the result of like the batted ball was. I need to see that for Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
I'll show you. I'm pulling up one right now.
And actually, one thing, since we're back on the subject of Barry Bonds, I think the one maybe I would want the most is the numbers on the Game 6 2002 World Series.
Yes.
Or no,
Yep.
Game 2 2002
Yeah,
World
like one of
Series.
these charts.
Yeah, that would be.
I need to see what that looked like. Imagine 2001 with 73 home runs.
Yeah. Oh my God.
There's just 73 red dots on that semicircle.
Oh yeah, and also I think as I keep going to Barry Bonds, I think it would be also interesting. I don't know if you can get like the percentage of baseballs thrown out of the zone against him.
That's what I was gonna say. Like the next point I was gonna get into was there are so many fun search tool things I could do with Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Like that is an endless rabbit hole that can give me. You know how many how about that's we could generate? Like his 2004 season, he saw 66% pitches out of the strike zone. That is a major league record. How about that?
Yeah. Like we would really be able to put numbers on how many actual chances he was getting to hit home runs.
Over the last 2 months, 80% of the pitches he's seen have been out of the strike zone, including because back then it would include actual intentional walks.
Yeah.
Because that's 4 actual pitches that are being thrown out of the zone and being counted.
Right.
So that's going to fluctuate the numbers a little bit.
Right. Yeah, the average fastball velocity against him was probably like in the 70s because of all the intentional walks.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds is just like, I mean, it would be endless stuff you could find.
I'd love to see like his 1991 season is one where he should have won MVP. He lost to Terry Pendleton that year. I guarantee you he got unlucky that season.
Yeah, probably.
Like I would love to see how many. Like that's one we haven't mentioned. I want to see how many of these people got unlucky.
Right. Yeah.
Or how okay, Barry Bonds had a 1422 OPS in 2004. What if his expected what if his expected WOBA or his expected slugging was like just barely lower or even maybe a little bit higher?
I mean, yeah.
Like how much of a difference could it have been?
Right. Yeah, I think it would apply pretty universally.
Yeah.
So yeah, Barry Bonds would be someone where
that is my number 4.
Endless. My number 4 is Greg Maddox, because it's not for the reasons I picked Sandy Koufax or Walter Johnson. I think there's just so many fascinating things to look at Maddox. I want to see his average fastball velocity compared to the rest of the pack, because we say it's low, but I actually think it probably wasn't as low relatively to the rest of the pack as maybe we thought it was. Also, I want to see changeup movement, because he had a changeup that would run in on righties, had a lot of movement. I want to see changeup horizontal movement compared to the rest of the pack, and kind of where it ranked in his prime for sure. Also, I think what are the charts where you find the location data and where it has the
pitch description?
Yeah, I want to see the pitch description.
Yeah.
And how much he was exactly on the corners and how red those points were, because those would be amazing to look at, because he was always around the corners and also a little outside the zone, because he would be able to expand his strike zone as the game went on. What else am I thinking? Oh, exit velocity against.
Yeah.
I think would be great to look at, and I think he would be definitely like 95th percentile or higher.
I bet we could see like Greg Maddox is the only player in baseball history to have in a single season an average exit velocity against in the top 10 percentile and a fastball velocity in the bottom 10 percentile.
Right. Exactly.
Like I bet that could be a thing.
Yeah, it very well could. So I think average exit velocity against, hard hit rate against, where that ranked compared to the rest of the pack would be extremely interesting. As I mentioned, change-up horizontal movement would be nice. And I think he threw, a two-seam fastball, which is labeled as a sinker on Statcast. The sinker horizontal movement would also be interesting to see compared to everyone else. And I think that's all I got on Greg Maddox. My number 3 is Mickey Mantle, because they always talk about how far his home runs were. I want to see how much of that is real, and see what the projected distance on his home runs were, because there's legend of him hitting like 565 footers. I'm not exactly so sure on that, and I want to see what those were like, and also like him being a switch hitter would be interesting to see what his home runs were compared as a lefty and as a righty, and that's really mostly what I have. I think all the other reasons are pretty it can be without saying. His average exit velocity, his average exit velocity, and what else? I'm just playing with the audio here. Average exit velocity, barrel rate, all the offensive players, we're going to look at that stuff anyway. What is your number 3?
My number 3, he's one of my favorites. Very underrated. I wish we had more than just Statcast for him. I wish he had like 6 to 8 more years in his career. Ralph Keiner.
Right.
Yeah, Ralph Keiner is a guy who... So this is one of my favorite things. In 1946, he debuted in the majors and led the National League with 26 home runs, I think. And then the next year, in 1947, he also led the National League with 51 home runs. That is such a dramatic change for someone who led the league in home runs in back-to-back years. And it's also a guy who did it in his first 2 career years. By the way, he also led the majors in he led the National League in home runs in each of his first 7 seasons. He also has the record for most home runs through their first 8 career seasons with a whopping 329. It's hilarious.
Yeah, over 40 a year.
This guy was wrecking baseballs. And there's virtually no footage of him playing whatsoever.
Right.
Like if you search for Ralph Keiner on the MLB film room, it's like the Pirates retiring his number, and honoring him after he passed away in 2014. There's literally nothing on him playing. I need some sort of footage of this guy. I need something to look at other than his Baseball Reference and his Fangraphs pages. I want to see. He was a guy who didn't strike out a lot as well, so I'd love to see his swing and take percentages.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see his chase rate. I would love to see everything. I think that'd be red circles galore.
Yeah, for sure. And your number 2.
Right. So my number 2. All you need to show me is really one season, and I'll take his whole career too. But I would need to see the infamous Old Hoss Radbourn 1884. Yeah, I need to see that. Yeah, 1884 was just such a different time, man. We don't even have game logs or anything. So I need to see, this guy was just going out there every single day, pitching a complete game every single day, leading the Providence Grays to an 84 and 27 or something like that record?
84 and 28, I think.
Damn, I was one off. But still, I need to see Old Hoss Radbourn season, man. I want to see the pitch description. I want to see his locations. I could probably do some Savant search stuff. You can give me way more how about that's with that.
Yeah,
I need to see everything about that Old Hoss Radbourn career and mostly 1884 season.
Right. And I believe 1884 was when they started going overhand instead of...
Yeah, pitch release stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to see the difference between pitch release points between 1883, 84.
Yeah. That would be really interesting. Also, Yeah, because Walter Johnson would be interesting too, because I'm pretty sure if you look at video of Walter Johnson, it's like a weird Justin Masterson-y
Yeah.
type. That's all. The only way I can describe it is like sidearm, but
Off
not,
to the side, yeah.
but not really sidearm.
It's like he's extending his arm like at a 45-degree angle almost.
Yeah, yeah, but he's not like submarining or anything close to that. So yeah, my number 2 is, for similar reasons with Mickey Mantle. I gotta see Babe Ruth's Statcast. He's a legend of the game. There's many stories about him. I want to know more about him with the Statcast data. I want to know what those projected home run distances were like, and also what would be interesting to see is probably like difference in launch angle and seeing how that kind of increased. Unfortunately, I don't really have a player on the list who went from dead ball era to live ball era and kind of changed. I think maybe an honorable mention would be someone who did that and like changed their launch angle, because I think that would be pretty interesting. I think the Babe Ruth change in launch angle would be pretty interesting as well. Especially going from a guy that was looked at as a pitcher, who's like a pitcher who was just hitting when he was pitching, to a guy who was playing offense every day. I think that would be pretty cool to look at. And yeah, the percentile rankings would just be, the difference between his average exit velocity and like the second best, especially in the early 20s when no one else was really hitting home runs, that would be something for sure. And I think it's pretty inexplicable. You really that would be something to look at. And I guess that leads to my number 1. My number 1 is actually Nolan Ryan.
Yeah.
Nolan Ryan, I believe, would be one of the more fascinating to look at, not only because of the fastball velocity and how it would compare to everyone else, but also because of the curveball and his exit velocity stats against him, because I believe he has the best career hits per 9 of all time, and the lowest average against of all time, with a minimum amount of plate appearances against him. So that would be fascinating, because we look at it would be similar to like how Corbin Burns is this year, where he's getting a lot of strikeouts and he's not getting any hard hit contact against him. I think that would be pretty fascinating to look at. And also, Nolan Ryan's FIP is a decent amount lower. Career FIP is a decent amount lower than his career ERA. I think it would be pretty interesting to see what his expected ERAs were, because he was never on great teams. So I think his defense was never exactly great around him. So I think it would be interesting to see if he, how unlucky he was certain years. So yeah, pretty much everything I wanted to talk about with Nolan Ryan. What is your number 1?
So my number 1 is also a pitcher, and it's also someone who was previously mentioned. It's the wonder of Weiser. It's the big train. It's Walter Johnson. This is a guy who pitched very well in the era where not really many people were pitching well, or at least a little before that. I want to see first of all, I want to see like the individual pitches that he was throwing in Game 7 of the 1925 World Series.
Yep.
That's where it was super rainy. They played in a literal rainstorm, and Walter Johnson did not win that game. But I would love to see like the pitch descriptions of that game specifically. I would love to see, like you mentioned earlier, release points. I would love to see his strikeout numbers, the locations. I would love to do search tool stuff with him. I would love to do just about everything. I'd love to see his spin rates, release points. There's not a single thing I wouldn't look at with Walter Johnson. Like, if I were able to get a hand on his Savant page, I would look at every inch of it. Like, I would take an entire day to do that. That would be the first player I'd look at. I would also look at the home runs he allowed, because he allowed 0.1 home runs per 9, so I would love to see how those happened.
Yep.
Because you could click on the little dots in those videos that play.
Yep.
You know, if that existed, I would check out every single one of them and wonder how it ever happened. I would love to see specific matchups. This is a guy who faced Babe Ruth plenty of times. He was in the American League at the same time that he was at his peak. I would love to see just about all that. He faced a lot of very good players between 1907 and 1927 from different eras.
Yeah.
You know, he probably faced Napolijois a lot.
Right.
He probably
Right.
faced a bunch of people that would just be fascinating to look at.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are our list. Very very happy we did this. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's not much to talk about, but
That was fun.
you know, yeah, good stuff there. And we're continuing to talk about history. It's very very fun. All right, so I guess that leads into players to highlight.
Should we just go through our lists one more time?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, I'll go first. So my number 10 is Jimmy Fox. My number 9 is Napolijois. My number 8 is Johnny Bench. My number 7 is Nolan Ryan. My number 6 is Bob Feller. My number 5 is Roberto Clemente. My number 4 is Barry Bonds. My number 3 is Ralph Keiner. My number 2 is Old House Radbourne. My number 1 is Walter Johnson.
My number 10 is Sandy Koufax. My number 9 is Billy Hamilton of the 1890s, not the player today.
We already have Statcast on him.
Yeah. My number 8 is Josh Gibson. My number 7 is Walter Johnson. My number 6 is Barry Bonds. My number 5 is Andrew Jones. Number 4, Greg Maddox. Number 3, Mickey Mantle. Number 2, Babe Ruth. Number 1, Nolan Ryan. And we had three overlaps.
Yeah.
Ryan, Johnson, and Bonds.
Ricky Henderson, honorable mention.
Yeah,
That would be a fun one to have.
I just wrote down a bunch of names.
Perfect.
That like I wanted to consider, and then I broke it down to 10 players. Honorable mentions for me that I didn't mention. Ted Williams, I think, would be fascinating, especially with like chase rate and everything. He had one of the highest walk rates ever. Willie Mays, obviously. Ricky Henderson, Hannes Wagner, Ozzie Smith, Pudge Rodriguez, because we didn't necessarily get like catcher pop time on him, and Brooks Robinson and Mike Schmidt.
A couple from me as well. Hank Aaron was not mentioned. Bob Gibson.
Yep.
Would be a good one. Derek Jeter, for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah.
Also Joe DiMaggio, because I would love to see what his expected statistics look like during the streak.
Right. Yeah. How many just
how
Texas
many
Leaguers.
times should it have ended, but it didn't.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating for sure. I didn't think of that. All right, so that does it for players we wish we had. Statcast 4. And now we get into players to highlight.
Also, one more honorable mention, Mariano Rivera, just so I could see the statistics on his cutter.
Yep. Horizontal movement.
Yeah. Well, even just like opponent averages, opponent slugging percentages, expected statistics.
Yeah, and I think exit velocity against would be pretty fascinating too, because not many people were getting hard contact off of him. All right, so now on to players to highlight for good and bad reasons. We'll start off with the good. Now for our Thursday, September 9th, 2021 edition of... I don't think that was loud enough.
Oh no.
I don't know. Maybe it was heard. I don't know. But
edit it in.
We'll edit it in.
Yeah.
Who do you got for how about that?
So my how about that for today is one of the underrated steals from the trade deadline. Do you remember, Chris, when the Blue Jays traded for Brad Hand and they released him after a month?
Yeah, I do remember that.
The guy they traded for him is a guy named Riley Adams, who's been performing very well for the Nationals since that trade. Since he joined the Nationals, he is slashing .327, .439, .545 with a .985 OPS. That is in 66 plate appearances. His .439 OBP is the fourth highest among the 287 players with at least 60 plate appearances since then. A lot of that is due to his 5 hit by pitches since then. He also has a 385, 429, 692, 1121 slash line with runners in scoring position, and a 375, 375, 875, 1250 in high leverage situations. He is one of just 5 players since 1901 to have a 1+ win probability added, 5+ hit by pitches, and a 415+ OBP in his first 23 games with a franchise. And you're going to love the list of people he joins. It is Shin-Soo Choo, Carlos Quinton, Josh Willingham, and Homer Suma of the 1922 Cleveland Indians. That is the list that Riley Adams is joining.
Wow. Riley Adams. Yeah, very that's a good one. That's kind of very, very under the radar guy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, shout out to the Blue Jays there.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Not a great acquisition made. My how about that is an ARR comeback special. He's someone who definitely was underperforming, and now he's kind of back on track and in a pivotal time for this franchise because they are dead in the middle of a playoff push. My how about that is Blake Snell, who in his last
Comeback special.
Yeah, ARR comeback special. In his last 7 starts, he has a 1.85 ERA and a 2.34 FIP in 43 2/3 innings pitched. Out of 56 qualifiers in this span, Snell ranks 8th in ERA, 6th in FIP, and 1st in strikeouts per 9. Before the span, his walk rate was 14.3%, and in this span, it is 8.6%. Walks was one of the things you mentioned was a big problem of Blake Snell's. And before the span, his strikeout rate was 27.3%, which was already pretty good. And in the span, it is 39.9%. And before August, Snell only completed 7 or more innings once in the year of 2021. But in this span, he has completed 7 or more innings 4 times. Pretty crazy, the transformation there. And first of all, I got to shout out Thomas Harrigan of MLB.com, who actually wrote an article about what he changed. It was featured on Baseball Savant. So Blake Snell's four-seam fastball usage went from 49.8% in this span, or 49.8% before the span, to 57.8% in this span, while his slider usage went up over 10 percentage points. And the reason both of those went up is also because he went from using the changeup 14.3% of the time to using it less than 1% of the time. That's because hitters were slugging 610 off of that changeup. So it wasn't working, and he finally abandoned it from his pitch mix. And it went away, and he's succeeding because of it. And lastly, this is the highest strikeout rate in a 7-game span with 100-plus batters faced in Padres history.
Wow.
So, Blake Snell.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants, putting suckers in fear.
All right, so now we go from the highs to the lows, where we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming. Now for our Thursday, September 9th, 2021 edition of what do you got for us today?
So my slightly alarming is someone who recently came back from an injury, played a couple of good games immediately after coming off the IL, but has since really not been in his groove. It's Mike Mustakis, who since August 10th is slashing 141, 191, 281 for a 472 OPS. His 191 OBP since then is the 3rd worst among the 256 hitters to accumulate at least 60 plate appearances, and his 23 weighted runs created plus ranks 6th worst. Since August 7th, 40% of his batted balls have had a launch angle above 30 while not crossing the hard hit threshold at an exit velocity. So that means they're being hit less than 95 miles an hour, and it's being hit above 30 degrees. And, 30-degree launch angle is okay, but you better be getting some exit velocity on it, or it's just going to be a flyout every time. And that's what it's been. for Mustakis. I believe he has 18 of such batted balls since August 7th. None of them have been hits. They've all been flyouts. And like I mentioned, 40% of his batted balls have been like that. That is tied for the 4th highest rate in the majors among the 340 hitters with at least 25 batted balls since then. And it's also the highest rate among those with 40-plus batted balls since August 7th.
Yeah. Mike Mustakis. My slightly alarming is a freeze over. I keep just taking your how about that's in slightly.
I want to see like the freeze over or comeback special rate.
Yeah.
Like what percent of my people just get taken from by you later on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at
It's
the
tough.
number.
No, I get it. It's tough at this point of the season because we've already covered a lot of people.
Yeah, and naturally, guys are going to get better or worse throughout a year. My slightly alarming is Chris Taylor of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who in his last 14 games is hitting .096 with a 374 OPS and a 39.3% strikeout rate. Out of 174 qualifiers in the last 16 days, his average ranks 172nd. His on-base percentage ranks 173rd out of 174, and his OPS ranks 171st. And his strikeout rate also ranks for the 3rd highest among these 174 qualifiers. And along with that, he's popping the ball up a little too much. Of the 236 batters with 25-plus batted balls in this span, Taylor has the 11th highest pop-up rate, and his launch angle is the 6th highest. So Chris Taylor getting a slightly alarming and also a freeze over. So, hate to steal some guys. I mean, I do it all the time, but it's what can you do? Sometimes you just got to cover some guys.
Yep.
Now to the preview of the week ahead, or weekend ahead, I should say. Luckily, because now we're actually back in school and the weekend matters. My series to watch. I'll be doing series to watch. Daniel usually does the day-by-day matchups. I would say series to watch, Red Sox, White Sox should be interesting. That's going to be at guaranteed rate fields. We've highlighted some of the White Sox struggles with above 500 teams, but also the Red Sox aren't the hottest team. They've been colder, but they're not the hottest team. So, we'll see how that matchup lines up. Right now, the White Sox don't have anybody pegged for Friday or Saturday, but they've got Dylan Cease going against the Red Sox on Saturday. Or what I meuld to say, they don't have anyone pegged for Friday or Sunday. They have Dylan Cease for Saturday. And I would just say, as from a baseball fan perspective, I would watch both the Dodgers Padres and Reds Cardinals series if you could, because Reds Padres obviously in the middle of a dead heat for that wild card spot, and also the Dodgers are in a position to maybe win or not win the National League West. So that should be those should be some pretty important series to look at. What do you got for day-by-day matchups?
So Thursday today, not too much going on. 2 games have already started. Kyle Quantrill will be going for the Guardians against the Twins. Marcus Stroman will be going for the Mets against the Marlins. John Means will be going for the Orioles against the Royals. Antonio Senzatella and Ranger Suarez will be facing each other in Rockies Phillies. And Huascar Ynoa will be facing the Nationals for the Braves. Matchup of the night comes from the finale of Blue Jays Yankees. Blue Jays looking for the 4-game sweep in the Bronx. Jose Barrios versus Nestor Cortez. That'll be the one to watch. On Friday, you have Tanner Houck going for the Red Sox against the White Sox. That's going to be a good series. You have Kyle Hendricks going for the Cubs against the Giants at Wrigley. You have Cy Young candidate Robbie Ray going against the Orioles at Camden. You have Adrian Hauser going for the Brewers against Eli Morgan and the Indians. That'll be a good one. Herman Marquez will be going on Friday for the Rockies against the Phillies. You also have Trevor Rogers going for the Marlins against the Braves. And Tyler Mahle going for the Reds against the Cardinals, like you mentioned. Joe Musgrove versus Julio Urias on Friday in Padres and Dodgers. Matchup of the night comes from Angels and Astros. Shohei Ohtani going against Framber Valdez. That'll be a exciting matchup to watch for sure. On Saturday, not a lot is announced. You have Dylan Cease going for the White Sox against the Red Sox. You have Hyun-Jin Ryu going for the Blue Jays against the Orioles. Zach Wheeler going for the Phillies against the Rockies. Luis Patino and Casey Mize facing off against each other in Rays Tigers. That'll be a good one for youth for that matchup. You also have Luis Castillo going for the Reds against the Cardinals. You have Eliza Hernandez going for the Marlins against the Braves. Chris Paddock versus Walker Buehler facing each other in Padres and Dodgers. And the matchup of the night comes from Brewers and Guardians. We have Corbin Burns versus Zach Polizzak. Yeah. That is that matchup. And then on Sunday, Chris Sale goes for the Red Sox against the White Sox. Steven Matz goes for the Blue Jays against the Orioles. Aaron Nola goes for the Phillies against the Rockies. You have Brandon Woodruff going for the Brewers against the Guardians. You have, that's not that good of a matchup. Bailey Ober has been pitching a lot better recently. He'll be going for the Twins against the Royals in Minnesota. You have Sonny Gray going for the Reds in the finale against the Cardinals. Justin Steele going for the Cubs against the Giants. James Caprillion going for the A's against the Rangers. Tyler Gilbert going for the Diamondbacks against the Mariners. I hope Logan Gilbert pitches that game. Carlos Carrasco will pitch on Sunday Night Baseball for the Mets against the Yankees in the Subway Series. Matchup of the night comes from the last game of the season between the Dodgers and Padres, in the regular season at least. Chris, how about that? Blake Snell versus Max Serger.
Yeah, I thought they were facing each other once more in the season.
I don't think so. They're facing the Giants a bunch.
Yeah, I think September 28th through the 30th, it's gonna be at L.A.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're right then. All right, last one in San Diego then.
Right. Yeah. Second to last series between those two, what we thought would be the NL West powerhouses, but the Giants seem to join them.
Yeah.
Funny how that narrative changed since like April. That's the end of the episode. We hope you enjoyed this one. We hope you enjoyed our new podcast equipment, and we hope you get used to it because this is what we're using for, at least when we're in school. So hope you're enjoying it. If you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Kern, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. Just had a nice Ted Simmons stat. Where else are you really getting that?
Who could possibly be talking about Ted Simmons right now?
Nobody.
Literally no one. Does anyone even know what that guy's doing right now? No,
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah, he's probably just on a couch somewhere. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you on Monday once again, where we're going to be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball. Once again, see you then.
This conversation is over.